All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee and Darts. This is brought to you by Atomic Darts and our wonderful sponsors, Shot Darts and Magicware. And today with us, we've got Jen Mounts from Magicware, and she's going to be talking a little bit about her darting career, as well as being a female in the darts community, and then her journey into Magicware and what she's doing there. So let's go ahead and bring Jen Mounts on, and we'll have some good conversation with her. But feel free to drop questions and comments in the link below. But again, thanks for joining Coffee and Darts. I'm your host, Matthew, and let's bring Jen in. Hey, Jen, how are you doing? Jen, I think you're muted right now.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I think the system did that on when I hit to start the broadcast, so I think it's my fault.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. All I said was thanks for having me on for the interview, of course, and I'd love to do this continuously over time. But yeah, please ask direct questions if you guys have them as we go, and we'll hopefully have enough time to answer them all.
Yeah. So we'll just kind of dive into it. We're going to spend, maybe about a half hour or so just talking about darts in general and your journey. And please share anything that you'd like the community to know. And then we'll get into some questions and answers. And if anybody pops in a really poignant question during the time frame, we'll get into that. So I'm going to kind of just turn the screen over to you for a minute. But why don't you give us the beginning for Jen Mounts? I know you and I were talking, as a kid, but really, when did you get into darts? And how old were you? What brought you to darts? And was there anybody else in your family that was into darts? Why don't you just kind of start with that and talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It's quite a long story, and I think an unconventional story. So I'll try to give you the bullet point, review of it, and feel free to interrupt me if it's going on too long. But essentially, my mom owned a bar in Tacoma, Washington. It was called the Oasis Tavern. And my senior year of college, I was starting to realize, how bad her situation was. She was losing maybe $2,000 a month operating that bar. So I started working there and doing little makeovers to try to make it look less divey, and my cousin Jessie quickly joined me bartending and renovating, and we started marketing towards a young military crowd. And the bar was getting packed on the weekends, but it was totally dead throughout the work week. So of course, my mom explained to us that we could just join dart leagues and, play out of the bar itself. And then Jessie and I learned the entire world of darts out of sheer necessity to get customers in her bar. So little did I know that this, whole experience would lead me down quite an incredible journey to self-acceptance as a queer woman and losing family over that, and how to keep my self-worth dealing with hatred. And it really led me to my dream career as a graphic artist for A to Z and Magicware. And it even led me to finding the love of my life, who's now married to me. So all of that came from darts and the community of players, which is truly astonishing to think about looking back. So to quickly sum it up, I started playing darts when I was 21, and that was 2013. And then I started traveling to tournaments in 2015. So it was Valentine's Day, and we were in Missoula, Montana. I think it was called the Winter Getaway. Basically, I brought a date with me, and I was heavily closeted at the time. And a dart player noticed that I was holding her hand and kind of started spreading rumors. And I just started getting flooded with messages on Facebook and Instagram. So weirdly, I decided to come out to the darts community of all people. And I just wanted the stigma of it all to kind of end and the questions to end. And I had this god-awful plan to not come out to my family, though. And of course, that's, terrible concept there. So when I kept going to the bar, I almost got outed by a couple of patrons to my mom. And so I was starting to freak out, and I realized, okay, I guess it's time. And I did come out to her, and it was worse than I imagined. I purposely stayed closeted because I was one of those people that just knew, all throughout my childhood, all throughout high school, that it was something I would want to avoid for as long as possible. And, all of a sudden I'm banned from my childhood home and the bar that I was actually living in because I had renovated the attic to the attic above it to avoid paying rent and kind of be closer to the bar and do more for it. And I was just living in my car. And so my best friend at the time, he came up with this idea that I should raise money, you know, kind of with like internet panhandling, as people call it, and travel the country and legitimately try to play darts for a living, since I felt like my skill level was okay enough at that point to take those risks. And I didn't know much about the GoFundMe kind of situation, so I created a page similar to that with a different company, and I ended up raising about $2,500 for travel, and that is honestly the true reason why I stooped to the level of internet panhandling, as so many people critiqued before, and I asked the dart community to essentially be my sponsor for the year. So needless to say, that campaign was quite successful and was getting more popular online. Under great pressure, won a lot of those tournaments that I did travel to that year, and gained a lot of sponsorships due to the exposure of all of that. And at that point, I think that's when I started my YouTube series. So I did Whiny Wednesdays and product reviews and try to bring on some friends and find a way to give back to the community with free content, such as you do with Atomic Darts. Fast forward about 2 years, it's 2017 now, and I had at that point I had posted some more provocative and controversial topics, I would say. And the true reason why I don't play darts anymore is because of some people. And you know, there was one video in particular touching on, I think it was social issues in darts, like, you know, gender inequality and or even the existence of that. And because of that topic, I had quite a few death threats and rape threats, actually. And so I'm 25 years old at the time, and I just shut down and I stopped making videos. I really started to lose my dart game, and that was almost my own version of the beginning of dartitis. I think that's a great topic that a lot of people don't talk about. It's almost taboo, as if you are to talk about it, that's like jinxing others. But I really don't believe that. I vehemently disagree. I think we should touch on that and help people. That's like saying, you know, mental illness is not worth talking about and finding ways to deal with it. So anyway, I'm starting to lose my ability to throw. My talent's going down the toilet. I'm feeling uncomfortable in crowds and traveling, and I just decided, you know, not necessarily to quit, but that I need to stop, at least for the time being. And at that moment, I even decided to take a job in like a high stakes marketing firm. And right after that, I'd even called a couple of sponsors to end my contract, because I realized, you know, I don't want to take up a spot that someone else could have traveling and playing. And then A to Z, the owner, John Baxter, after I went to the Camellia Classic in our hometown here in Sacramento, he expressed interest in me working there. And so I thought, what a neat way to stay connected with the community, but not have to play and still really truly be involved behind the scenes and kind of understand what makes the world of darts actually work and how the companies affect it, more so than just the player's perspective. So that is all what led me to where I am today, working for Magic Darts Incorporated, and got to create Magicware as a side thing to all of that.
Nice. So I found you, just a little backstory on like where I came across you, and I think most darts players did come across you with the YouTube channel. Like I was just getting back into darts, and I was starting Atomic Darts as a retail store, and of course I went to A to Z. It was really the only place that opened its doors to me to purchase darts. I'd gone to a bunch of the companies over in Europe, and they all shut me down.
Right.
And so it was A to Z was, you know, they opened their door to me, and Shot was just they were like, hey, how can we help? So really got to know everybody. Well, not everybody, but you know, the guys dealing with the wholesale at A to Z, which was awesome. And I came across some of your videos in the process and loved Whiny Wednesday. Oh my gosh. I still watch them occasionally just because they're so hilarious, and the Whiny Wednesday outtakes. But you had some really good videos like on sponsorship, how to get sponsored. And I saw the videos, you know, about being a female. in the darts community. And then I did watch those videos that you're talking about where you talked about the social issues and the the stigmata and the problems that at the time were very prevalent, just in everything in the US. And of course, a lot of those barriers have been broken down in that time frame, but there's still a lot to go in regards to that. I guess the question I have for you, and I would just to say I was saddened to watch a couple of those videos. In your last video there, you talked about, some of the threats that had come about and some of the things that had come about. And you didn't go too into it. So I know myself and some others were like, okay, what's, like, how do we get this person? That was kind of was that big brother, like, how do we stop this action, which I think is good in the darts community. And going a little off topic, I think in the darts community, as open as we are, as receiving as we are, there are still components that aren't as receiving, and we need to be in that. But on the side of that, as being is it a gay woman? Is that okay for me to say that? Or,
Sure. Yeah.
we didn't talk about that up front, what was the good language for that?
I'm not too sensitive about semantics, so don't worry about that.
Okay. So this has just been a personal question that I've always wondered. Being a gay woman in the darts community, so my background years and years and years and years ago, I worked for Cobra Golf, and the female community in golf is predominantly, there's quite a few gay women, and they're open about that. That's kind of, there's not such a taboo about it there. But in darts, I've always wondered how you seem to have been well received by a lot of people based on your social media posts. But what was it really like at a tournament? Like when you went to a tournament, I know you're saying here you felt really like things were a little bit of a problem, but can you dive into that a little bit more?
Sure. When I think about it in a general sense, my instinct is want to say that being a gay woman in darts is like being a gay woman when I'm brushing my teeth, right? Like it shouldn't actually matter or have any kind of an impact. But when I really stop and think, okay, maybe if I look at all those situations that I've been in, and would it have been different if I were perceived as a heterosexual woman? I do think that I was well perceived in the beginning. I hadn't come out yet anyway, at that point. So in general, maybe I do get treated better when people assume that I'm straight. And that's certainly true in my personal life, but that's not something that I think is worth not proudly identifying. So little sacrifices there. To have a little bit of social inappropriateness, but getting down to the nitty gritty of personal experiences, I think it's more important that I'm a woman in terms of the times that I felt awkward versus being gay. So like, for example, I've run many tournament booths, and whether I'm openly gay or not, you're going to get like those seedy guys that come in and they just linger for half an hour to an hour, bothering you, not purchasing anything, and just being inappropriate. And I think that happens to women in general. Versus being openly gay. I think it gets bad when my poor wife is with me. I think that's when you get individuals that will actually like invade our space and ask questions, the whole like just getting right in front of you and having a complete stranger be like, okay, so who's the more dominant one in your relationship? Which, you got to earn the right to have those conversations, and typically you wouldn't want to be the one that brings it up. So I think, in retrospect, it's really a very, very small percentage of people that take advantage of the fact that, I have some kind of vulnerable information out there in the world, and then take that and use it against me. That rarely happens, but the fact that it does happen sometimes can overshadow all the wonderful things about darts. And I'm not proud to say that I quit playing. It's one of my biggest regrets. But at the time, for my own emotional health and mental health, it just needed to happen. I didn't quite have that support group or way of getting through it. And I think I did. I just didn't take advantage of that. So even though it was these random strangers and some people in my own state threatening me, at the same time, because of the dark community, two individuals in particular, when I was living in my car, like I said earlier, they let me move in with them. And I lived with them for many months leading up to when I moved to California. So that was my last experience, was them opening their doors to me. And they were an older gay couple. So to have that was life altering. And I'm really appreciative of that, and it's really interesting to think about and talk about. So I hope I answered your question well
Yeah.
enough. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess the next question that I would have is being a female in the darts community. Like we've seen what happened with Fallon Sherrock this past year at the Worlds, or at um, one of the championship. I'm blanking now. Sorry. After
Yeah.
18 hours of darts, my
Oh
brain
yeah.
is still a little foggy, and my butt hurts, and I'm sitting on it. So, but as being, we're seeing stuff, as far as the ladies, doing there. Just the presence of the women in darts is becoming more prevalent, and I think, and I'm hoping that the PDC has taken this time frame of being able to step back and restart this season, essentially, that they've taken that into consideration as how do we add the ladies game, because best of my knowledge, the BDO is no more. It's dead. Even if it's on life support, it's gone for the most part, which kind of takes away that avenue for women in darts, that stage presence, that world championship presence. How do you feel things are going, and like with what Fallon did, where do you see darts going, and what's your experience as a woman in darts? Because as men, we have no real understanding. So that was a question.
I think there are a lot of men that, pardon me, I think there are a lot of men that attempt to understand and go through great lengths too. And you're not unknown, you're not unseen. So I personally appreciate the amount of men that have legitimately tried to create effective change on this topic. Women and men both need to work on their ability to perceive and appreciate female dart players. I think it starts with exposure, right? So like you said, you see more women playing darts now. So that's obvious, right? You need more coverage of women playing to begin with. So that means when you have all these little hodunk live stream companies, or even individuals that are trying to live stream, think to yourself, can I at least feature one premier women's match, to diversify and be inclusive in terms of what you're displaying to the world. When I first started, I researched the history of female dart players, and I could barely find any of their matches on YouTube, and that was a real shame. Like I'm thinking, like even as far back as like Stacey Bromberg in the U.S. and then Trina Gulliver is one of my favorites, overseas. So that's tough. That alone of a whole history of not really seeing women playing, and then beyond that, you have not only exposure, but then you have at the core level the amount of women playing and how they're treated. So one of the biggest issues that I ran into, well, there's two issues in particular. So one is, as you develop your skill as a woman, I found that no one quite articulated themselves in terms of trying to compliment them the correct way, I guess you could say. So for example, I might have talked about this in a previous video, but anytime I did well, or like not just decent, like better than average, but performed very well, and it was in front of people, they would come up to me after and they're like, hot dang, you're a good player for a woman. And that alone is such a backwards compliment. I hate using this metaphor, but I think about this every time. And I would never walk up to a black man, for example, and say, hey man, you're pretty good for a black guy. Like, it's just, oh, it makes you cringe, right? In your insides. And I don't get why it doesn't also make people cringe when they hear someone discredit a woman for her talent by saying you're good, but probably the average guy could beat you. I'm not saying that that's not true in certain cases, but to specifically articulate it in that way, I have a problem with that personally. Not to where it's the hill I'm going to die on, but it is something that always bugged me. And then the second thing is women starting off and increasing their skill get capped pretty quickly in terms of like they find obstacles very fast. So I'm from Washington State. I grew up playing soft tip, by grew up, I mean from the age 21 and up, but they only had medalists at the time, if you guys are familiar with medalists and Lee Pepper. And then Darts Live slowly trickled in, and they still don't have Phoenix, I don't think, or maybe it's just now something that's happening. And then it would be really tough to find a steel tip bar anywhere. So for me, I always dealt with handicap and soft tip events. And I was a medalist 10 I think after 2 years, and all of a sudden I would try to go to women only events, and it would be doubles, right? So the paired cap is 10. So I'm already at the cap by myself, and it would be impossible for me to play. And so I felt, instantly ostracized from that in terms of getting to experience women's darts with other women, which is some of the most fun darts I've ever played. So it's like, I'm not gonna, again, it's not something that I would create such a huge issue about and try to create change because of it. But it was something that I felt like, okay, now I'd have to travel maybe cross state to go play in a women's only event, and they wouldn't bend the rules for me. So I at least asked, and eventually once Darts Live kind of came around, some bars did try to help to do a little higher cap, more elite events, which was nice. And I'm not saying like there's an issue with professionals, like male professionals, and they can't play in a lot of blind draws, or like, or sorry, not, well, blind draws they could, but any kind of capped event, like they struggle with this issue too. But I'm talking like a really low skill level gap to where like a 10 medalist is not that great. It's like, I know there's so many different rating charts out there, but let's say I shoot 3 marks per round and for cricket, and maybe like 28 PPD or something. So it's like really just not like fantastic. And the fact that I couldn't even grab a rating of 1 person in play, it felt pretty discouraging. So you have the issue of not enough exposure, you have the issue of discouragement and ostracization. You just eventually get to the point where you can't play with other women. And there's got to be, a road of being inspired by something and then not meeting obstacles and discouragement along the way. And then even when you obtain a skill level, you're not appreciated for it truly. I think those are the major things that tend to affect a woman's career in darts.
So since I do want to get to Magicware, which we'll do here in a minute, but since we've kind of gone down this road, and it's a soapbox item for me, I will scream from the top of the mountains that 2 things. One, our sport should be completely all-inclusive in the fact that we all stand roughly 8 feet. I know it's a little less than that, but from the board, it's basically there's no real handicaps within what we do. We've all got the same distance to the board. We're all throwing darts. We're throwing at the same size target. There really isn't anything that should hinder us from working together. I don't even think stamina should, I don't think stamina should be an issue. I don't think any of that should be an issue. I think we should be able to play on the same level field. It's going to take a little while for, I think, the women to, I think it's money. We need to have more tournaments. We need to have the money there so that the younger players that are decent at darts don't go off to do something else, because why should I play darts? There's no money in it. There's no exposure. There's nothing here. I can go play soccer or do something else. Yes. Sorry. This is one of the joys of working from home and kids being here. What's up? Okay, can I get back to it? Yeah, you want me to buy a doll and some clothes? Okay. So I've been told I got to go to the store today to buy a doll and clothes. So with that being said, and I'll stand on the soapbox, I think the PDC needs to integrate women into it. How do you see that happening? Like, I've come up with a bazillion different ideas of how they can do it, but what would being a woman in darts and a woman that's played on the professional level, how do you see the PDC or the CDC for that matter integrating women into darts?
That's an interesting question. I'll start with the CDC. I think the championship dart circuit in particular is one of the very few that have actually taken a public stance on this issue, and they are in agreement with your theory, Matt, where there should not be a separation of gender in darts. They don't believe in catering to the masses. They believe in legitimately training our American players to be the best that they can be in order to compete overseas, which we desperately need. We see obviously through Dart Connect, for example, which has provided us with such insight in terms of how to compare ourselves to the world and what their skill levels are. And yes, stats are not the only thing that matters, obviously, but at least we have data now to look at. And the best of the best American players, you might see a difference of, 10 PPR or much greater, even up to 20 PPR difference of our best American pros versus the European. And then when you look at soft tip, maybe comparing ourselves to the Japanese pros, they dominate the darts live circuit. So I don't know if they're necessarily not doing anything to include women. Women have every opportunity to join the CDC, just as men do, and some have tried. So you had Liz Tynan most recently. We live streamed some of her matches. She has won some of her matches on live stream. If you go back to their YouTube page and try to type in her name, check CDC Liz Tynan, maybe you'll find it that way. I really don't know any other action they can take from a structural level in terms of how their actual circuit works. I think what it all comes down to is marketing at that point. Then what we really need to see is effort into an actual marketing budget, trying to reach the masses of women out there or highlight the professional women on, when it comes to that. I see very few interviews with women, very few matches with women. Maybe they can go back and look at some film that they have and, get some stuff out of the archive and put some mashups together. I don't, you see so many individuals take time to do the highlights from the PDC, but you rarely see that, with women. So if you ask me, my best answer would be create a specific marketing plan to try to show the world, what they're missing out on.
Sorry about that. I clicked the wrong button there. I completely agree with that, but I guess the question is, do you think there should be a separate, kind of like what the BDO did? I think the BDO at least, put it out there. That was one of the good pieces the BDO had, was they had a women-only circuit. The only problem is they didn't integrate that situation. And here's what I've always thought is the PDC for now can create a women-only circuit, have the men's only circuit, but then have tournaments where they interact together, where there's and those pre-tournaments to the tournament where, the outliers have an opportunity to play into a tournament. Let the women play in that. And my understanding is they are allowed to do that currently, but have the women play into those situations, give that opportunity, but create mixed match. When we have I can't think of the name of the tournament, but where we have the countries play each other.
Oh yeah. Now I'm blanking on it too.
Monday morning, I haven't had enough coffee. But if you integrated a female into that, so each team having 2 males and a female,
Mm-hmm.
I think those are ways that we could really bring that game up, because the 2 things I see it doing, one, young ladies like my daughter who's 4.5 are going to see that and go, I want that. I don't want to play soccer. I don't want to do this. I want that. And they're going to be able to see that interaction and that ability. But then we're also going to see the money, and people are going to see women in darts. And again, I think this is the only sport out there that strength doesn't matter. There's nothing that hinders women and men playing. In golf, guys, because of strength, that's natural. We can hit a ball further. Typically, there are some ladies out there that can crush the ball, but those are the outliers. Those are the few. But I think in darts, we can seriously come together because there's nothing hindering that. It's all up here. And you and I were talking a little bit about like dartitis and how that's a big mental situation, and how that's a whole nother topic, but how the mental game comes in. So I'm hoping, and I guess my hope is that the PDC and the CDC will find a way to integrate women into the game more so than they are now, and that women will take the step like you did in saying, here's who I am and I want to play darts. So
it's definitely an interesting thought process. I would say one thing that I can think off the top of my head, perhaps they can change their formatting. If, like you said, maybe they're including women as a requirement. So you'd have 2 men and one woman, and you could particularly set a rule to where women have to start. So you see this a lot in soft tip, and not only does it provide more exposure, more experience, and more confidence for women, but they have a greater impact. Like if you're starting off a game of cricket and your female player is starting, it's a way of getting to the point where you're not just tagging along a female player, but they're an integral part of your team. and greatly do affect the outcome. That's just one aspect of it. You could start to see just different formatting, different rules, and try to create a real show and market it. And I would love to see women sponsors step up and allow them, touching on your other point from before, to get into these qualifiers or these pre-tournaments. A lot of those women in the dart scene make a lot less money than men. You know, there's money's always a factor. Even the best of the best, when they're winning first place, they're, you know, getting what, a fifth of the prize pool of the men's side. So they don't necessarily have a bigger budget either to travel around. And for me, as an American player traveling, when I was at my best, which would probably be 2015 or 2016, I would have to win at least three different events. Like say I go to the Oregon Open, I'd have to take first in maybe like singles 501, doubles cricket, and trios in order to pay for my expenses and then profit from it, which is really, you know, it's unseen. You typically don't see one player absolutely dominate every event that's possible there. So it's just an interesting thought. I'm surprised the amount of people that think they can legitimately make a living off playing darts alone in America in particular. So I think that's a myth that we should probably touch on at some point when it comes to sponsorship and what to expect out of a career in darts.
Yeah, unfortunately, darts in America, it just hasn't peaked, and we're not seeing the dollars. I think the like AVP, which is volleyball. Unfortunately, I think volleyball pays out better than darts does currently. And as an avid volleyball player in my youth, you know, I always watch that sport trying to grow, and I look at some of these. I mean, let's take it. Tag is a professional sport. Okay? Tag is a professional sport. People are getting paid to do that. People make a living playing cornhole. Darts, which is definitely, in my mind, something that takes a lot more out of you in playing. There's a lot of thinking, a lot of process that goes into it. We need some cool sponsors to come along. Yesterday in the 18 hours of darts, I was like, why isn't there a shoe sponsor?
I think about that all the time.
Why don't we have a shoe sponsor? You know, Nike needs to come in and dump some money into this sport and become a shoe sponsor, because the feet are shown constantly. But maybe that's something we can do. We can, you know, Magic Wear can create a shoe line that is the dart shoe of tomorrow. So speaking of Magic Wear, I'd love to get into talking about Magic Wear, a little bit about it. I'm going to bring the website up and show that right here. And why don't you tell us a little bit about Magic Wear? Tell us a little bit about how the process, the designs, the materials, the printing. Let everybody know a little bit more about what's going on at Magic Wear. Maybe if there's some stuff coming around the corner, you know, if there is, let us know about that.
Absolutely. So as you all know, the darts uniform really is dye sublimated jerseys. It's not just the best of the best wearing them in order to sublimate logos onto them anymore. It's one of the most fun, creative things that you can enhance your experience playing darts by tailoring some kind of a wacky concept to your team name and going to events that way. And it's comfortable. I think it took off so much because it just feels like silk on your skin. And there's been so many times where I'd go play a tournament and I'd fall asleep in my jersey, you know, in the hotel room. It's become like a lifestyle. I think I see a lot of dart players wearing jerseys to the grocery store, and it's just their normal attire now. So we have a huge oversaturated market of quite a few different people that are trying to provide jerseys to the public. And this we knew, but what we felt like was a huge hole in the community is truly custom design, and especially designs tailored for women in particular. So it's not something that we're trying to purposefully do, but if you do look at our featured players, a lot of them are women. And I really think that's just happenstance. I think women reach out to me more often than men. They feel like a camaraderie with me. And as time has gone on, you know, really, it's just become easier to communicate with them. They have a little more creative, artistic kind of a mind. They understand marketing a little better from my experience. I'm not saying this is an absolute truth. It's just from my experience of who I've talked to. So you'll see us promoting women a lot. And it's only natural because I am a woman. We're a women-run company. Actually, with A to Z Darts too, every department head is a woman except for our retail storefront. The owner, so the owner is John and Kelly Baxter, a married couple, and John was a professional in the 80s and 90s, but he's now retired, and his wife Kelly has really been very influential over the country of darts and all the local companies. And our internet wholesale, warehouse manager, they're all women. So I think we have a unique perspective in terms of realizing that we really don't cater to women enough, and not just because there are so many more men than women out there in darts. There's enough women definitely to make them feel good and professional when they're wearing clothing. So the stock sizes don't fit them. They don't have the taper in the waist or short enough sleeves. We're custom everything. We really don't market towards the individual right now. So as you can see, like when you go through our website, all the main categories, we've created this category called Ready Designs. So they're pre-designed jerseys. And essentially what the concept is you can quickly personalize it to yourself. So you can change the text on the front. You can change any collar type you want or out of pocket. We work with other companies and give them a percentage back of our sales quite often. So you'll see this is USA Darts Production. They're one of the major streaming company in the U.S. So tops to, Kevin Malenfant with USA Darts. I don't think you guys have realized how influential he has been in terms of creating exposure for American darters. And then we have, lots of other companies and events that we work with. So Magic Wear really came from my own personal client list of when I was doing graphic art. And I worked with a lot of leagues and events and bars, a lot of companies, owners. So we do a lot of wholesale, and that's why you don't see so many options on our website. We're really only 2 years old, so of course, my apologies. This is a huge campaign that I'm working on right now. So what you'll expect to see in the near future are countless design options and way more to choose from. So when it comes to actual custom design, it's a little too expensive for individuals and teams right now. But like I said, we're working on a very specific plan to make it super easy for individuals. Our other category in terms of like custom design is called templates. So this is where it's not completely from scratch, but it's a super cheap design fee to where most of the jersey is already designed. So you pay $50 one time between either just yourself or a whole group of people. But this is what our wholesale clients use all the time. Like if you have a new league or a bar and you want to represent your brand, whatever the case, you start with that, and it's just an example, and then you can change almost everything about it. You can change all the colors. You can add anything you want, any amount of text. So we can still do custom artwork in terms of like, oh, you need some kind of a cool text effect, or you need a logo made for you. That's all inclusive to all of our pricing. And then of course, if you do want something totally from scratch, we have a 100% custom category. So it's pretty simple. We've put a lot of time into our website. The only thing we haven't done yet is create a custom order flow of like, if you've never done this process before, I'm going to basically put videos together, tutorials, and like an info chart, like a flow graph. So you can see start to finish exactly how does it work, how long does it take. That's the part people don't realize is the communication aspect of designing the artwork, going back and forth and proving it. That could potentially take so much longer than you think, depending on how fast you get back to us. So it's quite hard to predict, on an individualistic basis. But we have added an absolute joy working with the clients that we have now. And I know a lot of individuals out there, like I said, they're not very aware of us, and we're not trying necessarily to dominate tournaments or sell stock designs like almost everyone else does. We mostly specialize in doing custom design. So we like to work with the individuals that actually have quite an influence over the darting community, which is league coordinators, event runners, and bar owners, and try to help them make a profit off of selling to their particular patrons. And it's been truly an honor. I've been left with the full responsibility to decide, how are we going to scale as a company? Who should we hire? And to this day, I was the only employee of Magic Wear for quite some time, but now we have a second employee. So she helps me with sales, and she is also a graphic designer, very very well organized, and is helping structure this site to you guys. So that's basically the story behind Magic Wear, what we stand for, and what our hopes and dreams are for the future. We really want to feature women in particular and tailor clothing to them. We just haven't quite gotten to that point yet.
Nice. We're going to get into Q&A here. So if you guys have some questions for Jen, start queuing those up there. We're gonna have a couple minutes for that. This has been a great conversation in regards to darts. Hopefully everybody's been enjoying that. If you're on Facebook, don't forget to hit the little like button, the heart button. I forgot to mention that. But a quick question that I have about Magicware, and then we'll get into some questions. So I see this here, and it says a one-time $150 design fee. That's it. Like, basically, if I've got an idea in my head, but I don't know how to get it onto paper or how to make it work for $150. If I understand this correctly, you guys are going to design the jersey for our team or whatever, and that's pretty much it. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That's more often than not the case. So this is the part about custom design. Is the most expensive aspect of this entire company is creating the artwork. So my salary of being there and designing, and especially designing for individuals, which a single design could take up to 8 hours to complete. So when you think about a person's labor and their time going into the artwork, and it has to be vector artwork, so that's particularly more time consuming to create. That's where we're trying to find a way to take shortcuts in terms of how long I have to sit and actually design by creating more templates and things of that nature. But this fee is for a completely custom scratch design idea concept. I won't necessarily sit with you and consult with you for several hours to create the concept. I hope that you at least have a general idea of what you want. But this is to basically pay for the expertise of a designer who can make a million little choices for you that you're not even going to really think of, but at least make your vision come to life in digital art. So of course, you don't have to sketch out what you're thinking. Even if you have a hard time verbalizing that, most of my clients call me on the phone and they try to explain very complicated concepts, just with words. And typically we have a policy to where you get 2 alterations or changes for free. And what that means is it's not one single alteration, it's a whole email. So when you respond to the first draft, you could type out many paragraphs of all the things that you want to expand on or change. That's considered one alteration. Typically, you don't see someone requesting 15,000 changes, but it's not. We're not going to pigeonhole you to like, oh, well, you had me change one color on this one piece of artwork, so that counts as one change. So of course not. But I've personally never gotten to the point where I had to go past those 2 series of changes. So not trying to come from a place of arrogance, but it's because I spend so much time communicating with the client in particular before we get started. So Matt, you have experience with this because we did a couple of recent designs together. So hopefully you can kind of see how that process worked, or maybe you could have been a little picky, or you were actually quite like, it looks good, thanks, and sometimes that happens, but more often than not, I encourage people to be very picky because it's your design. You're going to wear it. I don't even have to like it. I want to make what's in your head come out into reality onto that jersey.
Well, I will say, going through that process, and I have worked in the print industry in my life. I worked for a marketing company, and part of our job was printing. So I understand a lot of the process, but I also understand the heartache that designers go through. They'll put their full heart into a design and then have it splattered. We used to do these days where we would have all our designers. I think we had 5 on staff at the time. They would create all these designs that were going to be our marketing pieces that we were going to print and sell as static pieces. They were like postcards and paper things. And we would have them create hundreds of designs, and we would stick them all over the wall. And then we would just start tearing ones off the wall that we didn't like as the managers. And then we would get down to 25, and then we would have them tweak those. But I could see their faces like, wait, that I spent 10 hours on that one. I spent 1 hour on that one, and that's the one you like. Yep. So I kind of know the pain, and as far as I caused the pain, so I understand that. But I will say the process working with you is phenomenal. And I will say for myself and my kids, who are ecstatic because I printed out the pictures of their jerseys. They're up in their room. They literally were like, we're putting them in our room. So Dylan's jersey picture is next to his signed snake bite jersey. That's where it rates, and they ask me constantly, when's my jersey showing up? I'm like, it's going to be a couple weeks. Give it time. But they're ecstatic to wear them and play the darts. I'm ecstatic about it. And I'm very happy that Magicware was willing to come alongside us and provide. And I'll say, guys, I just spent 18 hours in a Magicware jersey playing in my garage, from a little bit of cold in the morning to getting super hot and sweaty to, evening and then late night. And it was super, like, I almost put it back on this morning, but I'm like, I probably should wash it first.
Yeah.
But super, super comfortable. I could have slept in it. They are very, very comfortable. We've got time for like 2 questions here. We went a little bit long, but I'm okay with that. It's been a great conversation. So here's a question that came in regards to the shirt you're currently wearing. And Jen, is that jersey or shirt available? Are you guys doing polo type shirts?
Yeah. So the thing is, I think a lot of people associate jersey companies with the pop-up collar, the stand-up collar, but our data from Google Analytics shows that it's a perfect split throughout the nation. Half the people in the country love polos, half the people like stand-up. And then we have a few miscellaneous clients that do the V-neck and crew neck, like in other sports like soccer, baseball, etc. I do have a personal preference, but it's guys, it's a subjective choice, right? So it's your personal style. So I'm never gonna try to enforce one collar type over the other. That's why we open ourselves up to do anything. And the cool thing is when you order one design, you can order a mix of collars. So this design in particular, I could have gotten this in all 4 different types with different pocket types. So this is a hidden interior pocket. I think they're a little more modern. And I think the stand-up collar is more modern, but when you go coast to coast, they're die-hard polo fans. So go to the East Coast, you're not going to see that stand-up collar. That's a Midwest thing. So yeah, this design in particular was just for our company. We went to something called the Tastes of Fair Oaks in our local community, and it was really cool. It was just a wine and beer fest, and we had a booth there. Any design that we've ever created, we keep all of our artwork. So I have terabytes of data and artwork saved. Our whole thing is you could order something with us, and 5 years later you could reorder it, or you could have us alter the artwork later on. So if you really want this jersey, or I don't even know if that was the particular question, like just contact us and we will have one custom made for you. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the website in order for you to order something.
All right, and then I'm going to end with this. This was a question that came across onto my Facebook page. Roy, who I just had up here, Roy Collins, who's a huge fan of yours, big fan. And then, I totally forgot about this till this last second, but I actually have a set of Jen Mount signed barrels. Now these are retired barrels for now because Jen hasn't told you guys, but I'm gonna spill the beans. In about 4 to 5 years, she's gonna come back to darts and she's gonna pull the snake bite move, take a little retreat, and then come back and crush and become world champion. So Jen, I put it out there. It's there now. You got to come back in 4 to 5 years.
Pressure's on now.
Yeah. But I have a signed set of Jen Mounts barrels, which we're going to give away somehow here in the next couple minutes. But we'll figure that out. I totally forgot about it. They're sitting here and I'm staring at them. But I had a couple sets that Jen signed years ago for me that I had purchased when she first got to A to Z. And another funny story is, Jen, I don't know if you remember this. I know we talked briefly about it, but I tried to hire Jen to do some design work for me. And like the next week, she's like, I can't, I'm moving. And I was like, what? And then it was like, I'm moving to A to Z. And I was like, all right, fine, whatever. So Roy sent in this question. It says, basically he says, hi, Jen, I'm a big fan. He emailed Magic Darts every week begging for any Jen Mounts paraphernalia. And finally, after many weeks, they sent me a signed postcard by you. So that's cool. So guys, if you don't bombard for signed stuff, guys. You can see, I'm sure Jen is out at some different tournaments, and we're gonna bring her back on in a couple of weeks or months or something, because I got to ask her about pool, because you guys didn't know this, but Jen played pool for a while. I saw the photos, so I know it's true. The question is, what are ways that we can further introduce darts to the young population to grow the interest? So we'll end with that one. Just a quick spin. Where do you think we can go to introduce? I know Shot has the young guns, but what do you see, or is there anything on the horizon where, like for me, I've got my 6 and my 4.5-year-old, and as I bring them into darts, where can they go? Because going to the bars isn't happening just right now. Mm-hmm. So what do you see, or do you see something that'll help bring the youth in America into darts?
Yeah, I think I've spent so long speaking with experts on this topic, and by experts I mean the people that run youth leagues, and kudos to Shot, who's been a manufacturer in particular that has had their Young Guns program for as long as I can remember, and very few companies in darts, really truly support youth darts, and they've been wonderful all this time. And now you have the Championship Dart Circuit with their youth program, and they've always had full-on youth circuits, tournaments, and they film and try to do something with that film and put it out there. And again, the issue of exposure, of opportunity, of money getting to these places, and more often than not, you see the GoFundMe type thing for youth players. So that works well, and you don't have the, I don't know what you would call it, but there's a little more. Gosh, what's the word? Like, it's more critical for an adult to do something like that, because you think that they're just looking for a handout, blah, 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 whatever their personal circumstance, doesn't matter. But a youth player, they're innocent, right? They maybe their parents need help getting them places. So you need to see a little more community-based help there, and then opportunities of locations of where to play. When I went to Singapore, for example, every single mall, every like boys and girls type club, all had opportunities for youth players to go and play. And it was like darts, like going out and playing darts in Asia is like one of the coolest things you could literally do. You have an entire group of like 20 people that go out, they get a bottle of liquor and they play darts, and that's like going to a club. And it's like they're all dressed up too. It's astonishing in comparison to what we're used to. So I don't particularly know what to do in terms of local communities to like create spaces for youth players, but there's got to be some like programs out there to where you can like maybe adopt kind of like the veterans aspect of, they have all these lodges, like moose lodges, and maybe there's some spaces like that you can start putting dartboards in and host leagues. Because only some bars that are restaurants allow kids up to like 9 p.m. typically in different states. But like you said, it's super hard to get the kids in bars. And do you really want that at the end of the day? Some parents might be just more, just might be scared to have their kids around darts players all the time. So that's their personal choice. It's a tough one for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I keep pulling on these things. But I have things in my head where I'm like, okay, we need to create this whole league for kids and stuff. It's just getting them involved. And I'll tell you, my 6-year-old, he knows every number combination on that dartboard. He spent a weekend. He has a grand board in his bedroom, and he sat there pushing the buttons with his tablet, figuring out, and he knows every combination on that dartboard. He knows, like, we'll be watching stuff, and he'll call out shots like, oh, they need to hit this, oh, they need to hit that, and I'm like, like quicker than Wayne Martle can call it out. I mean, he's just on it. And so he knows, and like the dartboard of that math aspect is huge. Like he's got it. And I think that's where it comes in, is maybe we get the schools to understand the math aspect of darts, but we're going to put darts in kids' hands, and it's probably not going to happen. But still, I think it needs to be brought to light that kids getting into it, and hopefully communities will start looking at that. But hey, Jen, it's been a blast. Guys, we're going to give that set away. I'm going to have Jen randomly pick someone. We're going to sign off here. And I would continue doing this, but I know Jen's got to get to work as well as I do. So we could probably talk for hours about darts. And Jen, I really appreciate you being on here this morning. Thank you for being our first really conversation on coffee and darts. And guys, don't forget that we are sponsored by Magicware. Go check out their website. Check out Jen Mount's designs as well. If you need some design work, she's there for that as well. And we want to thank Shot Darts as well. But again, Jen, thank you. And any last words for everybody?
Oh, absolutely. One topic we didn't touch on was sponsorship in the modern world now in 2020. I had a lot of content about that topic, but it's expanded. And now I'm in the position to where I am sponsoring other players. So I understand how this works from the player's perspective and the sponsor's perspective. And if you can bring me on again, Matt, I think it would be really helpful to dispel some myths out there and explain to people what is sponsorship and how can you obtain it and keep it.
Well, definitely, Jen. We'll get that on the books, and maybe we can make you a regular, because I know everybody loves talking to you, and just your knowledge in this sport and your heart and desire is huge. And I really do hope that we see you come back in the next 4 to 5 years. I don't know if there's kids in the thought process for you and your wife, but you know, if that comes up or whatever, I know that changes things a lot because I've got 2 of them. Um, but in any case, I hope you do come back to darts from a professional standpoint. And I do love watching the CDC broadcast because I know you're in the booth a lot of the times calling those. So it's a lot of fun to have you in the darts community. And you helped me as I came into the darts community. So it's just awesome to be able to sit down and talk with you. So everybody, I'm going to end the broadcast right now. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Check out, if you missed any of this, go back and check that out. It is going to be on YouTube and it'll be there on Facebook. And go check out Jen Mount's Design on YouTube and watch some of the content that we were just talking about, the Whiny Wednesdays. Make sure you have a drink with you, enjoy the laughs, have some fun with that. It is totally a blast. But also, if you're interested in sponsorship, she does have a video where she goes into depth on what that looks like becoming sponsored, because she was sponsored. And then we'll have her back on and we'll talk more about sponsorship from being someone who now sponsors. So, Jen, thank you very much for being on, and we will talk to everybody later.
All right. Thanks, Matt.